61. Oh, yeah, yours is too, isn't it? Yours is, isn't it? Or yours, is yours 11th or the 13th? It's 12 too. I knew it was right there.
Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be the statement by the Board Vice President, Mr. Steve Majors.
All right. Let me find it. As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance, led by our Board Clerk, Ms. Brandy Roulette.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, my God. Sorry about that. Okay, next item will be discussed the November 9th board meeting minutes. Any discussion?
You?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next item, number 5, Mr. Dale. Excuse me.
Dr. Vinson, President Allen, members of the board, I'm here tonight to ask you to accept and approve a renewal agreement between the Broken Arrow Public Schools and the Assistance League of Tulsa, providing grant opportunities to teachers within the district. We were fortunate enough to have 7 different teachers be awarded grants from 6 different sites for a grand total of $9,079.16.
That's awesome. It's incredible. That's very cool. Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, Ms. Brassfield. You do this on purpose because every time it's good news when you go up there.
We do have good news tonight. So I am here to have you accept and approve the grant awarded from Cherokee Nation. This grant our Indian Ed Department wrote. It was a competitive grant for a coronavirus relief fund, and it's in the amount of $100,000. There was also a non-competitive grant for $10,000 that was awarded for the same reasons. So
That's amazing. Absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Discussion.
Nope.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Next item, Mr. Foreman.
Good evening. Dr. Vincent, President Allen, members of the board. It is my honor to present to you this evening a donation from the Broken Arrow Public Schools Foundation in the amount of $39,989.06. This donation will be used for the Teacher Grant Program, which directly funds needs in Broken Arrow classrooms. We are grateful to the foundation for their continued support of this service and this program, and look forward to seeing these teachers receiving their grants, which is Wednesday? Wednesday, yes. Their faces when you present these is unbelievable. They love this stuff. And you know what? It makes their day, their week, their year. So more than any time in history, these grants are needed and much wanted right now. So we know this will make a great difference. And thank you again to our foundation and their members for all their hard work and dedication to our students and our teachers. And I believe somebody from the foundation would like to speak real quick before we ask for you to approve and accept this donation.
Good evening, Dr. Benson and the entire board. We, on behalf of the Broken Arrow Schools Foundation, we've been hard at work through the summer and the fall creating opportunities to share monetary gifts with our district. In addition to the $20,000 given to our middle school campuses for their maker spaces and the $11,386 that were shared at the beginning of the year for student PPE, and our teacher grants totaling close to $40,000. This semester, the foundation gifts are just over $70,000 just this semester alone, grand totaling over $90,000 for the calendar year. So we wanted just to offer our thanks to you all, and we will continue the hard work to raise monies for our school district.
I personally want to thank you all for all your hard work and efforts to help contribute to the classrooms, to the district, even more so in this time of need, this crazy time that we're in. I think the program that you offer for Teachers Grant is a hidden jewel that our teachers sometimes just don't take advantage of, and really shame on them, because there's a lot of opportunity for some added money to their classrooms. And I know when I sat on that board years ago that the problem was getting the teachers to complete the applications. I know that's still the problem, or a difficulty, I guess, and I hope the district will continue to improve that process through their efforts in communications with teachers in our district, and appreciate all the effort that you guys put into being able to award these to our teachers as well. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I want to second that, and I just want to point out that, in items 5, 6, and 7, we've got, 9 teachers that are affected through the art, and then we've got Cherokee Nation, $100,000. I mean, that's huge. And then 54 teachers affected through these grants. And the trickle down is what it means to students. Because when you put money in the hands of teachers, guess what? It means great things happen with kids. And I can't thank you all enough. It's, if any time, more so than right now than any time. We're all under such pressure, and money is tight. And we'll continue to see more and more cuts to our budget, especially at midterm. And so we cannot thank you, the Cherokee Nation, and the Assistant League of Tulsa, because without this extra money coming into our budget, we would not have any extras. We would not see any frills in our classrooms. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
With that being said, we would like to ask you to accept and approve this donation from the BAPS Foundation.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all very much, every one of you. Thank
Yep.
you. Foundation Express, thank you. Next item, number 8, comments from the public. We have none. Number 9, Ms. Enoff.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Benson, members of the board. I'm here tonight to present our 2019-2020 annual audit and comprehensive annual financial report. Everyone should have a copy of the report at their seat. And in a minute, I'll invite our auditor to give a few comments on the audit. But I just want to start by saying that we started this process 9 years ago. And I'm very proud of the publication that this book has become over 9 years. It has definitely improved and transformed since we first began it. And more so than ever right now, given the scrutiny that public education faces, this document proves that Broken Arrow goes above and beyond in its financial reporting and transparency, and it's because of the support of the board that this happened. So I hope you all are very proud of this publication and this book, and at this time I'd like to ask our auditor, Mr. Jay Jenkins, to come up and give some comments.
Natalie, he's not reading this whole book to us, is he? Okay.
She said you wanted the Inagata DeVita version.
Mr. Majors has you on the clock, so just let you know.
Okay. Well, she actually told me to kind of make it short and sweet, so I'll try to do that. This is 100. I think the last page is 119 pages, 120 maybe if you include the cover page. That's a lot of pages, and we're still here on time at the December meeting, just like last year, even though I wasn't wearing a mask a year ago when we were at this meeting, and a lot has happened since then. And I know it. You're probably sick of every single agenda item you somehow mention the pandemic, so I'll go on. But what I did want to point out is, like, this 120 pages is far more than any other audit that we present, and to do that at the same time and to be able to do it each and every year, it's kind of like like a casino buffet of audits, because it's like has everything in it. And it's really interesting because right in the back it has like to have a CAFR audit, a comprehensive audit, you have 10 years worth of financials. So, anybody who has any questions about the finances, you could go to this and probably get your question answered. Unlike others, the most public schools, and even this one, whenever I worked here 25 years ago, just had the audit on a modified cash basis, which, was a lot simpler to put together, obviously. Didn't take near as much time, but it certainly didn't provide the information that this does. And with all that information, we have to do quite a bit of testing on it to make sure all the facts are in order. And Natalie and her staff do a great job of providing that to us. Especially this year in the spring, I think we maybe had to do a lot of this stuff remotely. Our office shut down in the middle of March, and we didn't reopen again until the middle of July. And so we coordinated with all the schools that we do interim work, which is done before the year end, to do some of that testing from our homes. And so they were kind enough to make copies and send it to us, and we offered a discount for those schools that participated in that. And so we, you learn to think outside the box and work through problems in times like this. I did want to point out in this year's audit, there was a GASB statement number 84, which changed the way that we recognize activity funds in the financials. We've included we restated the beginning fund balance to include the activity fund, because for the GASB statement 34, they want all those revenue and expenditures included in the statement of activities and statement of positions. So I just want to point that out. There's a $3.6 million change to the fund balance to the good, and the explanation is on the note on page 72. There's $12.3 million in operation grants and contributions. That's on page 37. Included in that is $11.7 million in federal revenue. And then your general fund balance, cash basis, the way we used to do it, it went from 18.1 to 21.2 million. So that was good. It's good to have an increase that year, because you don't know what kind of cuts we're going to get in a month. So that was good going into this year to be at that level. Did I do all right? Did I stay in under the... If you have any questions, I'll try to address those. At the end of this, I think there's a audit acknowledgement form that needs to be passed around and signed by the board and Dr. Vinson and then eventually me. But I can try to answer any questions that you have. But yeah, in order to get this audit out by the December meeting, got to go through a lot of hoops. And not me, not our office, but their office as well. They work really hard in the fall to get this to us so we can review all the pages in a timely manner.
Well, I want to say just job well done, Natalie, to you and your
This is
team.
awesome.
I'll say this, I'm not shocked, just because of the fact how good you all are. And just even more impressive, and shows the value that you all bring to the District of Broken Arrow, and what you're able to do during such a difficult time. And just job well done to your entire team. My only question on this is this available like at the chamber or anything like that, to where businesses or anything like that are able to get access to this or gain access to this?
Available on our website.
Yep.
There's a direct link, and we can definitely drop off copies at the chamber office. In the past, we've also given the chamber a copy of our PAFR, which is our popular annual financial report. It's a little more user-friendly, but we can certainly make this available as well.
I think anything to show off what we do here in Broken Arrow Public Schools to any future and current businesses would be helpful. I mean, I think it's just a plus in my opinion. So, but job well done. Great job.
Well, and I would add too, especially right now in the climate where it seems like public schools are a little bit under attack, and the theory that we're not being good stewards of public money, that going that extra mile makes all the difference in the world to show that, in fact, we are good stewards, and we have 10 years worth of data to show exactly where every penny is spent. So I know this isn't something you have to do. It's something you choose to do, and truly appreciate your team's extra effort and hard work to provide that transparency and accountability to our community. So.
Dr. Vincent, I appreciate that comment too, because we hear a lot as board members, there's too much fat at the top and to trim the fat and all this. Well, they can look right here and see how it truly compares in percentages and things like that to what we do and what we spend at the district. It's not like you're going around with a blank checkbook and just buying things and spending things. We are, the district's being good stewards. As board members, we have a fiduciary responsibility, and just everybody working together. So I appreciate that comment, because you hear that a lot. You know, you got too much of this.
You didn't get your check this year?
No. Dr. Vincent said mine's in the mail, whatever that means. So, I don't know. And she said I got a raise. So, but no, I appreciate that very much.
This is a voting, like a vote on this.
Any questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Mr. Jenkins? Thank you.
Yep.
Next item, Ms. Dias, Ms. James, Ms. Peterson.
Slow it down. All right. Good evening, Dr. Vincent, Mr. Allen, and members of the board. So just kind of going along with the last month, we gave you an update of Virtual Academy, and we just wanted to continue with that since we had conducted our parent summits and presented a survey to the parents and teachers. When we visited with you in November, we talked about the weaknesses of the program and the strengths, and how we wanted to continue to improve for our students. So since then, we sent out invitations to all of our parents in Virtual Academy for a parent summit, and that was held on November 17th. We held 4 different summits so that parents could pick the one most convenient for them. They were all through virtual, and there were 3 during the daytime and 1 in the evening. We have about 2,100 families in our Virtual Academy. There's still over 3,400 students. And out of those 2,100 families, 75 families participated, which to us told us, and we blasted it. It was on social media. It was on our website. Mr. Starr sent it out. We sent it out. That overall, the majority of the parents seemed to be more satisfied, know what's going on. They didn't have the number of questions. Go ahead.
What was that number again? You said how many?
We have 2,100 families and 75 participated. And we
Ms. Dias, I'm sorry. Did we also call? I mean,
yes.
Yeah, how
we
many different
blasted
ways
it.
did we reach out to
Yes.
parents?
Yes.
3
yes,
times.
3 times.
Okay.
Sent it through social media, on the newsletter, so to us that meant they know what's going on. They're satisfied at this point. But we want to continue to reach out because sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Along with that, we sent a form, a Google form, that they could submit up to 5 written questions. And then that's how the 3 of us, along with Ms. Thornton and Ms. Hennis, developed the presentation. We wanted to make sure we were answering their questions, not what we thought were their questions. And then along with that, at the summit, afterwards, we created an FAQ of any questions that they had that may not have been answered or the reoccurring themes that we kept hearing. So we had the summit, and we had the chat box that you see on Zoom, and then we answered the majority of questions that we had time for. And then at the end, actually it was Ms. Peterson and Ms. James, when they were in quarantine, they summarized all the questions and put them out there, and we actually publicized those today. So they're out there for parents to continue to look at. And then we also created a teacher and parent survey using SurveyMonkey for additional feedback from families, and that's what Ms. James and Ms. Peterson are going to share right now as those results. So, Ms. James, you're first.
So with the survey, we had 574 families respond. So we sent it out multiple times through all the platforms as needed. Thank you. I forgot about that. Thank you. So I just want to walk you through some of the questions, and how we set up this presentation is what the survey said and then what we're doing in response to what the family shared with us.
Do you want to click or you want me to?
I'll let you click, and
Okay.
that way I won't, yeah. Yeah, I'll just tell you.
I love to click.
Okay, good. Go ahead and click. Thank you. All right, so question 1, this is question 2, but question 1 really just basically asked them what grade level their students were in, and they could respond for each student. So if they had 3 children, they could reply to the survey 3 times in response to that student specifically. Overall, it was pretty much pretty evenly balanced across all the grade levels. It wasn't more in one area or less than anything. It was pretty evenly kind of across the board for everybody. So we felt like that was a good show to give us a very informed answers to our questions. So question 2 really asked the families, why did you choose the academy? We felt like that would be insightful because we want to be able to be intentional about the services we're providing them and how we can address the issues they're saying. And as you can see, it mentions like COVID concerns. Of course, 90% of them was with COVID, which we expected that. Consistency in learning. I think a lot of parents at the time felt that we were not going to be able to maintain in-person learning. I think we shocked a lot of people being able to do what we were able to do. So at that time, a lot of them thought, I'm just going to do that. I want to be in and out, back and forth, and so I'll choose this route. We also believe that's probably a majority of the kiddos that chose to go back to in-person learning were those students and families who realized we were going to be able to provide a more consistent in-person learning than they had first believed. Flexible scheduling, that's one of the things that when we back in January and February, and began to look at all the different programs that we could do for virtual, that was who we thought would take advantage of this before the pandemic. People who are in high activities, who are competitive. I'm doing, ice skating, I'm doing ballet, I'm doing cross country, whatever happens to be. We really thought the flexibility piece is who we would be providing services to. And student anxiety and, of course, health issues. We felt all of that kind of fell under those COVID. So we felt it was insightful so that we could make sure we're touching on everything that they're needing from us in this program. Question 3 really asked about how long they were spending, their students spending time learning and completing their schoolwork on average. As you can see, majority are spending 3 to 4 hours. We have to remember they're replicating a 6-hour school day. But again, they're not like doing a lunch break so much. They're not going out for recess. There's certain things that time backs off a little bit because they're not doing that organizational pieces that we do during a school day. We assumed that the 1 to 2 hours is probably pre-K and K, which is extremely appropriate. We don't want them in front of a computer more than that. We felt that was great. 3 to 4 hours was pretty much a majority, and the 5 to 6 hours, which we really think is probably AP courses and those higher end cores that they're working on. They should be spending more time. It takes more time to read and to apply what they're learning in the program.
Do you know that's the case, or?
No, we weren't able to do it because we didn't want to be specific on that, but what we've monitored when we've visited with parents and we've done calls, and I know Mr. Starr's calling weekly just to kind of get a survey by phone, most of them are telling us that. Also at the pre-K and K level with Ms. Hennis, she's mentioned several times when she's had parents, they're like, well, we're only doing 2 hours, and she's saying, that's okay. That's appropriate. We don't want kiddos sitting in front of that. So we weren't able to narrow it down. It's basically assumption we're drawing from the feedback we received from parents and families as we've communicated and talked with them throughout the last few months.
So Oklahoma is not the only state, obviously, that is distance learning right now. And especially with the AP courses, do we have any gauge on, is this pretty standard across the entire U.S. in AP courses that kids are spending this much time?
Yeah, it is. We've been doing the research and to really back what we're saying. Are we spending too much time or less time? Edgenuity, everything that AP puts their stamp on for College Board is all the same. So if you want to count as an AP and you're going to get that weight and you're going to be able to do the AP testing, you have to do the courses they've approved. So through Edgenuity, our courses are approved through them. They tell the company, this is what you have to have. You have to have this many labs. You have to have this much reading. You can only use these textbooks, which is why for a month I literally was scrounging all over America trying to find the books that we could use because they would not let us use any other books. So everything AP-wise they're doing no matter what program they used. So question 4, some of the feedback we'd gotten early on was really about upset with the roster teachers or some of the positive feedback, just how people are helping us. So we focused some of our questions on those concerns. So how satisfied are you? Dissatisfied or satisfied with how the roster teachers responding? The first question was the timeliness of those responses and emails or questions that are given to the roster teacher. 83% are saying, hey, I'm satisfied or very satisfied with that. We're glad to see that. We're excited to see that. But as you can see on the side right there, our goal is for that to be 90% or higher. We would want that to be definitely higher. But we felt like we're at least doing the right thing, that they are seeing the responses, they are receiving more of our communication. 80% felt the availability for them to assist with questions. Again, it's a positive end, but we're still aiming for 90% or more on that. Our biggest concern for this was that only 63% of families felt that the teacher's communication each week to check in on students. That was a huge flag, and that's where you see that red thing. So we have been working on that with this to ensure that we're addressing that. I'll respond to the very last thing. 84% of them felt like the teacher does respond within the 24 hours. So how we're addressing that? Clear expectations. So our roster teachers understand what the expectation is. And then we can communicate with them or visiting with them. What are the challenges you're having to be able to respond to the families and the students as needed? And the expectation that you have published hours and you have to be there and available during those published hours. And if you can't make it, we provide flexibility where they could do later hours, earlier hours, and then we allow them to flex their time to make sure they're available when parents are needing them. Secondly, we felt like more monitor student progress. We monitor students' progress, especially for eligibility. So it's an easy step after that to say, if a student's not logged on for 2 or 3 days, or he's not performing at the level he should be, a parent should have heard from one of us by that point. If not, then that's on us to hold that accountable. So we put in places logs. They provide with us more specifics on log, like, hey, this kiddo hasn't been online, but here I spoke with mom and he's been sick, or I've been out of town, or I've been competing, whatever happens to be. And if it's not, like I'm just not logging in and I'm at work, well then we're gonna have different conversations and do more interventions at that point.
Who monitors that log of parent contact?
Mr. Starr does, and then me and Ms. Peterson have been doing that on top of that because we feel like that's the most important key. We provide a service, and that's what we told our teachers. These are our customers. So when they call up, if I called the company and they said, I don't know, I'll transfer you to somebody, hope they can help you, and they don't, I'm not gonna go back to that program. I'm not gonna purchase that product anymore. So we're saying, no, we're not gonna do that. When they respond, we're gonna figure out a way, make the connection, and get back with them on that. So Mr. Starr and Ms. Fry checks with elementary, and then Jennifer and I each week are going back through and reading those logs. Some of the things they'd say, well, I'd send an email, and we're like, okay, now we're adding another step. Just sending an email is not enough. Did they get back with you from that email? If they did not, then we're making a personal phone call. Mr. Starr has been doing family site visits. So he and Mr. Martin, matter of fact, I believe it was Mr. Martin, have gone to families and knocked on the door and gotten chewed out because the parent didn't want them there, and it's like, but we're not just going to let them fall off the radar and not hold them accountable. So it is
There's no
on
difference
us.
in truancy though, right?
We do. After so long and they've not logged in, then we fill out a truancy and report them for that. But we're also going to the home sites to figure out some things because we have families who are not home or they're running into difficulties. And so we're trying to say, we don't want to just do the truancy and then drop you. We want to say, what can we do? If mom's not there and you don't have it, then let's get you back in in-person learning. Maybe this isn't a good fit. If they've struggled with internet, we provided them to come up and work at BAVA on site and be checking in. So, but that 63% is definitely that's not good. We're not going to do that, but we look for that to improve. Also, we're requiring a weekly check-in visit where we're on Zoom or our Microsoft meeting, which is like our FaceTime meetings, where they're interacting with the students. So are you doing okay? Are you checking, how are you feeling? Are you able to get things going? And then doing the phone calls on top of that as well.
When did you say we're doing the recheck on this?
We said mid-March is where we set because we want to see times. But if you guys feel like maybe if we do it earlier, we're open to that date. We want to have time for things to play out and to make changes in people's perceptions, because it feels like it takes a little bit of time, not just one time I got a good phone call, but the 10th time I get a phone call and it's still that same level, that they feel differently about it. So we're open to that, but as a team, we kind of felt like March, maybe that'd give a couple of months for the families to see the new programs and services we have in place. Do you feel that's appropriate?
Go ahead.
Think about it.
Let me
think about it, yeah.
How many total questions did you say were in your survey?
We did, I'll get to
Was it
that,
10,
10 or 12. We didn't do many because everything tells
Sure.
us, don't overdo it, and provide them, so 12 for the parents, and I think about that, 10 for the teacher.
When signups for second semester virtual?
They were to notify us, they were to let their roster teacher know by December the 11th if they want to go back to in-person learning, or if they're wanting to, we didn't set a deadline for those who want to come back to virtual or opt into virtual. They can just apply through their admin. Admin reaches out to Mr. Starr and they have that conversation.
So what about all those that were in virtual first semester that are retaking it second semester? As part of your requirement to be in it, you take the survey, you get 100% back on that in order to sign up for virtual.
Okay.
That way give you probably a larger sample size that may be able to help you address those things that you're going to look at in March
Okay.
or something
That's a good
down the
idea.
road.
Perfect. I like that.
And it's
Thank
just
you.
part of your enrollment process. You take this 12-question survey and you get some information.
We're
back.
surveying them as they exit to see what we can do is to change automatically at the
Well, you
site.
can do it
but
both
that's
ways.
perfect.
You can do the people
Oh,
leaving
absolutely.
to get back in class, you got to do it, or to retake virtual and do it that way and
Okay.
get your
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. That's a
100%
great idea.
participation on
Good
that deal.
suggestion.
Thank you. How do you communicate with your roster teacher? That was another thing, how they're doing it, what they prefer. We want to make sure we're meeting them at the place that they're comfortable. A majority of them, almost 100%, are saying absolutely through email. They could check all that applies. They said Canvas, a newsletter. The two things I put an arrow here just for you guys to be aware and for us, phone and our Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which is our other platform we use for that. We want to see that move. We want to see that increase because we feel it's a more personalized approach, and it's also more student driven for the Zoom meetings where they're engaging with other peers and with the roster teacher. And the phone, like I said, I sent an email, that doesn't cut it. We want that next step. Did they receive the email? Did you get a response? If not, follow up the phone call or some type of contact. Overall, how satisfied are you with your roster teacher? This was on, when I created the survey, it went through like 1 to 5, 1 being the most dissatisfied, 5 being the most satisfied. So 3, kind of that no label, that yellow right there, we went ahead and said that was negative. We want you to have we don't want ambivalence. We want, yeah, I'm satisfied with that. So again, this is putting us at 72% of them saying, yeah, I'm satisfied. So these are the things we put in place to raise that and to meet their needs. Increase the teacher's ability to facilitate virtual learning. And that is by providing more training. What is best practices? It's not enough just to be clicking through Edgenuity or clicking through Calvert with Edmentum and saying, oh, they're on progress. It's about calling them. How are you doing? How do you feel? Are there any challenges you have? Do you have the books you need? Are you joining the book club that we offer you through the media, for the library? Interact and doing more of that. It is, any teacher will tell you that the struggle is going from in-person to the distance learning. It's a whole different set of skill set. And some of our most highly effective, we talked about this the other day, we have teachers that, home runs, just knock it out of the park in person, but struggle virtual because it doesn't feed them and they're not as comfortable. So we have to hone their craft. It's not enough to say, you're a virtual teacher now, and here's what you need to do these check-ins. It's really about giving them the skill set and the strategies to be highly effective in that. So we're doing that, providing weekly training. Also, we're doing PLCs more intentionally and more often. They meet once a week as a team. So high school 9-12 meets every other week. Middle school meets weekly, and elementary meets weekly. At that time, we got a lot of positive feedback from the teachers about that. They're able to collaborate more. They're also able to solve problems together. They look for solutions. And like, hey, this is what works for me, try that. And they're like, oh, that works. Also for grading, they're working together on those shared practices. Clear expectations, again, we have that already in place. We take that for granted, and in person, teachers understand their expectations. They understand. They've been doing this a long time. For our virtual roster teachers, it's more of a struggle for them. They need it a little bit more outlined, a little bit more intentional about the expectations we have, like a weekly check-in where you're on Microsoft's team and Zooms. You know, don't let yourself get wrapped up in the grading and forget the most important piece of this program. Last but not least is really about educating the parents about what the roster teacher can do. Sometimes they have a different view or had a different perception of what that person was going to be able to do. It's just going to replicate what I do in the classroom, but you know, and it's just going to be here. It doesn't quite look like that. It looks a little different. So we have to educate them to say, here's what we're doing. How else can we make adjustments? How else can we meet your needs? And kind of go through that. So we felt like that was a two-way to make sure that we're providing information to our families as well. 7, take advantage of our group instruction. We offer tutoring at night. We also offer tutoring during the day. 72% of the parents said, yes, I do know about tutoring, but only about 12% are taking advantage of that. The others are, no, I wasn't aware, or no, they don't need offering and I don't know it about it. We send out this information weekly. I gave you an artifact that I had Ms. Hills include in the information you received, which was a weekly example of our newsletter. Every week the newsletter says, click here if you need tutoring, sign up for tutoring. We have it at night virtually, or they can come in person, and we give them like an hour-long tutoring session in which they can meet with us. In addition, we're telling the roster teachers to offer more tutoring during the day. We have to meet them where they're at and make sure they're in those office hours. We're doing one-on-one or group Microsoft Teams where they can provide more tutoring during the day.
And that newsletter, how's that getting to the parents?
It goes out by email. It goes out, it's on the website. He posts it there, and he also sends it out as a link to their text messages so they can click on that and open it up. And it's sent out weekly. Like, he works on it on Saturday, finalizes stuff, and then Sunday night, Monday morning, it's sent out through that. And then a lot of that has the links that you can click on to follow through, or you click on Genius to sign up for the tutoring opportunities that we have. Question 10 about the communication. We really wanted to look at, like, one of the things we got feedback was the negative communication they felt was coming from the administration. So we've been coaching on that. We've been having conversations weekly how to increase that and then make a better communication. Again, we're about our customers, which are our families. And so this was a positive for us, that we're feeling like 84% of the information they felt like was satisfactory or highly satisfactory. Frequency, 85% felt it was great. Relevance, 82%. I think on the next survey we do, I want to say, what do you consider relevant? What is something missing, or something you're like, I don't need to look at all that stuff. I just need this, right? We also talked about asking, we have one newsletter and it addresses all things, because families, some of the feedback was like, I don't want 3 different newsletters, but then some people's like, I don't want to dig through everything. So we're trying to find this like happy medium where their needs are being met. So we're looking at that. The parent summits gave us a lot of good questions, and questions that when we ever get a call, we haven't really been getting emails or complaints lately. And so, but any question we do receive, or any parent or one of our admins at one of our sites said, hey, this question came up, we collected all those questions and we created the FAQ that Ms. Dice talked about. And so we went through every single question they had, divided it by the grade level band so that they could find what was applicable to them. And then again, our next survey that will come out, maybe ask a different question, like, is it still relevant? And if so, why or why not? Can you give me some more information, so make sure we're giving them what they need?
Based on the summit, did you get any more information about how frequently do they want communication, and how much information do they want?
It was either
it's
too
hard
much
to
or not
pull.
enough. Yes, it really is. What we're going with, based on our thing, is over communication. I'd assume over communicate and them complain about that, then them complain and say, I don't know what's going on. So right now, anything we send out, it goes out in every single format we have available to us, and we resend it 2 or 3 different times. So right now, our focus is over communication. If anybody says, well, I've sent it out, it doesn't matter. Send it out again.
Okay.
If Mr. Starr sends it out, he shares it with the other site, so it's applicable to their students, and they send it out as well, and make that connection with them. The forms of communication, we were curious about that. So email, almost 100% of them are saying I do email. The weekly newsletter, 40 to 50% of them are doing that. Text messages, but our website is about 10%. I know Adam and his team's been looking at that, how we can continue. Right now, God bless them, they put every single piece of information we have on our BAVA page on the website. So what we want to do is continue to refer parents back. I don't know that it's not that they don't like it. I just don't think it's a natural thing for them to go to. It's just not their first inclination. They'd say, I'll just call somebody. I do that too. I'll just call instead of just like it's 2 clicks and you'll have the info there, right? So every time we answer their question about something, if their need knows something, we're like, yeah, here's the answer. But remember, we always provide that info for you on our website. We go ahead and answer it, but we still continue to refer them back to that. So we're hoping we'll increase the consistency of that use because it should be a one-stop shop. They can get everything there. The videos of how to do things. Here's your roster list. Here's the people you contact. Here's information. Every single thing is on that webpage. So I think if we just get them in a more of a habit to go to it, it might help offset some of the things when they don't know what they need to know or they're not even sure. They can at least start there as well.
Well,
So
by your stats, 93% saying they like it emailed. That tells you they want you to give it to them instead of them having to go get it.
Absolutely.
So that might help you develop your plan. What
We
they
do.
want.
And the thing for that, and it is a good point, we want to email, but then it's like they want instant. So when I have 4,000 people asking a question and we're trying to get that going out, it's hard to man that. So we're doing that, but also we're like the ones that are like, if you really want to know and you don't want to wait the 24 hours, click here first. And if it's not, but you're right. Everything we do goes by email for sure.
Ms. James, is there a link on our app that gets them to the virtual academy also?
Yeah. Any of our schools that have an app, BAVA it's considered its own school site. So it has its own app as well. Select from the list the way we can best meet your students' needs this way. Some of them wanted more tutoring hours, which we have addressed. We are doing that, providing more during the day. Also, we added additional new teachers for during the week, but we have open. Ms. Dias keeps an eye on that, and she's always like, no, we're doing fine. We still have some open slots that haven't been filled yet. So obviously we got enough right now, but we are increasing the number during the day. Informational parent nights, they asked for that. We did the parent chat. So we'll again offer more summits in the future. More checking in with students, that's an expectation that started this week. The expectation is you are doing it a minimum at least one time, if not more. Video tutorials, they asked for that. We've been providing that. A lot of that's on BAVA on our website under that page. There's a whole lot there. He also provides links for that in the newsletter that Mr. Starr sends out. Then we had other. So then instead of printing all those others for you, Jennifer and I went through and kind of found common patterns. The biggest thing that we've gotten from them was IT. They just wanted a little bit more support. I think at the beginning there was a bit of a struggle, of course. So a couple of things we're actually going to bring up in our meeting tomorrow. Our team meets with Ashley's team, and I think what would help is that if we have one of his team members at the table with us and with Mr. Starr as we're doing things, so there's at least one person, like we worked as a whole. Mr. Bowser was there, Amanda was there, holding our hands through all of that. But I still think having a technology person at his team who knows, like, oh yes, this is the program they're doing. Here's what we're probably going to ask. Let's see what we can do to help manage questions that they're possibly going to have and be at the front of that. So I think that will help. We also, one of our teachers who is out there is now a FIL, so that's a Fusion Instructional Leader. So that's the go-to for any teacher, or if a teacher has a parent asking something, they can go to Alicia and she can give information, and then they can go back and relay that. Pacing calendar, what a lot of them really want to know, where should I be? So we have gone in and said, okay, at this point, you should be at this point, your grade, end of first semester, your grade is going to be marked on this percentage. And so we took in our delay of getting started, where we're at, and say your grade's going to be over that. And I think them just knowing, because the way the program is set up, it's just up to 100%, which would be the end of the year. They kind of wanted more little check-ins along the way, so we're doing that for them. And then last but not least, a huge number was just more interaction between students. which of course, if we weren't in the pandemic, would be extremely easy to do. A lot of the things we talked about in the interview with Mr. Starr, a lot of things we could be doing out and about, we can't do. But we can mimic that through virtual platforms, and we need to be doing more of that. So I hope with the check-ins, we'll start seeing that, but also being open to the virtual field trips that they have available that we can get more students on. You shared us one the other day. So really making sure that the expectation is when we share that, we're offering it, and we're gonna be there to make that available. It's not a suggestion, it's the expectation. So any questions on this part before I hand it off to Ms. Peterson so she can share with you the teacher? There's a whole lot to take in, I'm sorry, but.
I just have one thing to say. I appreciate you guys sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, because sometimes I feel like we just get the sugar coated, and
understand.
we like to hear all of it. So that,
Good.
so I appreciate that.
Good, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, I'll let Ms. Peterson move to her part.
James, thank you. This information will help you all get better, and it's a work in progress. We understand that. But if we truly take it, use it to your advantage, we will build the best virtual school around that people want to be a part of and come and see what you all are doing, and they can help do it in their district.
I
So.
appreciate that. And we have, everything you guys just shared with us at the original last two meetings, we've taken back. So the very next day, we're like, okay, this is the feedback we got. Jerry, you gave us a great feedback, like, hey, you'd be doing this and this. And so we sat back down that very next morning and said, okay, let's take what they gave us suggestions and let's move forward. And you weren't here last month, Mr. Fallon. I don't think you were
I
here
watched the
when we did.
meeting. I was watching it.
But not to
I didn't want
quote
you to
Allen,
cuss
but-
at me while I was gone.
I did quote you. I did say, Mr. Allen said, we need to have a program that is the best and regional, and that we have people wanting to move here or be part of this just because of what we're offering, and that's what we want.
Well,
And that's our goal.
And for us, we want, I always like to use the term feedback that feeds forward. So when we got all of the feedback from our parents, Sharon and I actually sat down and took all of those results and came up with, okay, this is what has got to be implemented. This is what has to be done. And then it's up to us to hold them accountable, to make sure that those items get done, because if parents are telling us this is what we need, then this is what we have to give them. And so, anyway, because what's the point of doing a survey if you're not going to use the results? So,
I envision it to where you guys have something so special that maybe districts that don't have the resources will say, okay, let us send this teacher to your training program to utilize as a teacher. We'll pay part of the salary as a fee, but we train them through our program, utilize them as a teacher within your program. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do when you have such a nice, big, robust, great program to offer versus just the cookie cutter program that we're trying to get by. I think we can be something special.
I will tell you, we do not want to be cookie cutter. Like, that is not who we are. And so I will say, I know the three of us have lost more sleep over this program because we want to be the best. And we can tell you at the beginning, we couldn't stand up here and tell you we're the best, but that's where we're moving. So I hope a year from now, when we're standing up here, we're going to be like, we still have room to grow. But I always want to look back and see where we were, and then see how much growth we have made. And so I look forward to that day that we're like, oh wow, I mean, look how far we have come. So with that being said, we know that this program cannot be it can't be great like we want it to be unless we hear from our teachers as well. So we have to have the feedback from our parents as well as our teachers. Here's the awesome thing about this survey. We have 35 virtual teachers. 35 teachers took the survey. So this basically, now you will notice in a few of these, there was a couple of questions that a few teachers skipped. I'm not quite sure why. But all 35 teachers did take the survey. So the first thing we wanted to know, did you volunteer to work for the virtual academy? So we did follow our negotiated agreement. We have to follow that agreement. But if you will see, almost 70% of our teachers did volunteer. So that tells us that they want to be there. 10% of our teachers interviewed. So that means multiple teachers wanted the same position. So that means 80% of our teachers actually wanted to be there. However, when you look at the yellow, what that is we did have some positions, and there were some at the secondary and some at the elementary, where we had to move a teacher at the elementary. We just had too few students, and so we had to ask teachers, I need you to become a virtual teacher. And at the secondary level, they really looked at their sections, and if a middle school or a high school could give up a certain section, that is what they did. And I know Ms. James was really intentional about talking to the principals about what sections they gave up, because what they wanted to ensure is at our secondary level that we did have a virtual English teacher, a virtual math teacher, a virtual history teacher. That way, if I'm a roster teacher with 100 kids on my roster, but I was an English teacher and I have someone coming to me with a chemistry question, I can go to my peer and ask them, hey, can you help me with this? And so that's where those PLCs that she referred to really come in, and I'll hit on that a little bit more, so that they have that time together. The next question is, do you feel comfortable navigating the platform? And so what I just want to point out is 31 of our teachers did say that they felt comfortable or extremely comfortable, but 13 of them said, but I want more training. And so we took that as they want more training. So, I mean, that's almost half of our teachers. So starting, and actually, we told Mr. Starr, here's the thing, we've got to get more training on the calendar. So there is now a weekly training. So there's two different types. He asked them, do you want more training on the platform? Well, here they did. So he's reached out and he's setting up training more on Edmentum or Edgenuity. But we don't want to provide training for training's sake. We want to make sure that they're getting what they need. And so he has surveyed them and basically is going to be setting up weekly trainings. Some of them are by their own peers, because I will tell you, we have got some teachers that may not have, and I'm just going to say it, they may not have been the rock star in the classroom. They are rocking it as they're rocking it as virtual teachers. They have found their niche. So we have a few of those teachers. I can think of one in particular, elementary. She is at the virtual academy every week working with other elementary teachers to help them get better. And so, like I said, we want him to provide some of those all invited, none required trainings as well. And then, like I said, I keep hitting on the weekly training opportunities, so I'm going to go on. The next is
one quick question.
Oh, question, yes.
So in regards to the train, I love the fact y'all are doing the train. Are we getting any kind of feedback that are they having enough time to be able to kind of go to those trainings as well too? I mean, it's great we're offering, but are we on the flip side making certain that we give them opportunities?
So when they set up their calendar on Mondays, they have like a weekly faculty meeting where they block off, and they have done this from the beginning. They block off half the day.
Perfect.
So they are not having a faculty meeting that whole time. That's
Okay.
where they're embedding that training that's already in their calendar.
Perfect.
And they don't have any. So remember, virtual teachers, they don't have any duties at sites. They're not doing recess duty. They're not doing car duty. So they do have, I know. If I were, I'd be like, oh. No, actually, recess duty was one of my favorites.
So really, they're doing like a PLC for half a day on Monday,
They are, and then
or extended period of time on Monday.
Yes, for an extended period of time. So it's either training provided by an outside source that they have asked for, or what the other thing that we have done is all of the APs, so the elementary APs take their roster teachers that they are responsible for, and then they work with them in a PLC to work through all the issues that they're having. That way it's not, I'll just say 20 adults in the room at the same time. They get them in smaller groups, so it's even more effective. So
That's good.
the next, select the areas in which you feel supported by your BAVA administration. This is like Mr. Starr, Ms. Fry, and those APs. What I wanted to point out were the two, they did really well in timeliness of responses, but the two areas that had the lowest percentage was clear expectations and training. And so talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm a virtual teacher and I'm out sick and I need a sub. What do I do? It's things like that that didn't happen up until recently, but we're like, okay, we need a very clear process if you are going to be absent. And those teachers need to know why. It may have been 48 hours. And so we now have a clear, defined process on what do I do if there is a sub. And then, those PLC meetings are an expectation. They are not I'll go if I want on or not? So it's really those clearly defined things, and that's one thing that we had told Mr. Starr. If I am a site principal at the very beginning of the year, what do I do at that first meeting? I go over all of our expectations so everybody's clear. We have to have a very clear set of expectations for virtual teachers as well. And so, like I said, we're learning as we're going, because some of those expectations look totally different than it does at a regular building. Any questions about that? Awesome. Overall, how would you rank the support you are receiving from your team? So between supportive and extremely supportive, there were 29 of the individuals. 6 landed in that not supportive or slightly supportive. I think that could correlate with the number of teachers that did not raise their hand to be there. That does not mean, though, that they should feel supported. So that's one area where we will work on, is to make sure all of our teachers feel supported, and I'm making an assumption there. The next is, what do you feel is a manageable roster number? So if you'll see, this is what our teachers put. By and large, they put 50 or less students. I believe 1 or 2 actually put 100 to 125. So we want to utilize this data as we're moving forward to next year, because here's the thing that I think I'll be honest, I didn't realize this. Grading as a virtual teacher is an extreme challenge. So only 50% of the curriculum within the virtual program is graded by the program. 50% is constructed responses. The constructed responses are how teachers will be able to tell, are students using higher level thinking? Are they actually mastering those standards? And good virtual teachers have to have time to provide the feedback from those constructed responses. So if I'm a teacher with 66 kids on my caseload, and I have 6 sections of subjects that I have to go into and grade, well, it'd probably be like 4 cores that I have to go into and grade. I have to go into each individual student's, like, I don't even know the right word to use, but I have to go in and look at each individual student to read. So it does take an exorbitant amount of time. So we've had a lot of questions. What does a roster teacher do all day? I don't think that is one of the things that we did put on that FAQ. They do have to spend a lot of time grading. So we do have to be cognizant of that. That's one thing that the secondary folks have done a great job, is they come together Mondays during their PLC and help each other grade, so that if, like I said, I'm an English teacher and I'm having to grade some science content, I give them the best possible feedback that I can give them. They don't just wait till Mondays to do that. They're collaborating all of the time. So we definitely, like I said, want to use that next year when we're looking at class sizes for virtual, because like you said, Mr. Allen, I don't think that we can call ourselves amazing when we have 100 kids on our roster. So you may be asking, well, how many kids are actually on the roster? At the elementary, it's an average of 49 students. The lowest roster size is 33 and the highest is 68. At the middle, their average is an 86, and at the high school, the average is 103.
So how do you communicate that, or how's that? You got a high school teacher that's teaching English, and they've got 150 students to 155 students on their roster, and it's like, well, I've got 150, but you're saying you only need 50 for each virtual teacher. How do you?
I think, so if I am a high school English teacher, are you talking like, how do I, like between brick and mortar and virtual?
Yeah, so you got a high school history, and then you want only 50 virtual students for virtual teacher for the roster, but I've got 150 to 155 as a high school English teacher.
So I get, Mr. Starr pointed it out to me. I used to teach middle school, so I could sit down and grade, but I was given the same assignment. All my kids were in the exact same spot. And so I could sit down and go through, unless it was a writing assignment, but you can knock out that grading pretty quick for, 140 kids. I've done that before. Okay. If I have 50 kids, but 4 sections, So that's 200 different things I'm having to go into. So 50 kids in English, 50 kids in math, 50 kids in history, 50 kids in, and then I'm having to go in individually. That's where, but just like you just said, that's what a lot of people think. It's 50 kids.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. You're gonna,
Yeah.
well, they've got only 50 and I have 150. So
Yeah,
what's,
but times
but I
it by-
get what you're, but I get what
Yeah.
you're saying. You've
We
got
did.
50 times 4 subjects or whatever. You got 200 items or
That's right.
200, really 200
So does,
things to, subjects or
Yes.
tasks to grade.
Yes.
So
And
we-
if you, there's usually about 2 tasks per week minimum.
Okay.
Minimum.
so does this maybe, I mean, you know, again, this is all brand new to us and we're learning as we go, but maybe we do have some positions that we may need to create or evolve to. I mean, if you're wanting to get, you know, if we had 75 students, you know, I hate the fact that grading is going to be a limiting factor to the number of, so maybe there's some technology or something out there, or maybe even positions of, you know, grading experts or something that, you know, can assist us with, and that might be something we explore. And
Well, I think, well, and even I'm always about the people, and the reason I
Right.
say that is what we've heard by and large is our parents want more engagement with
Yes.
other, and so you can't do that with a computer. You know what I mean? And we know the best way to grow a child is to give them that formative feedback. And so that is what that grading does, is that I had, actually, it was a parent, in my office, and I was talking to them, and she was talking, her students virtual, and the kiddo would get, 4th grader, would get so excited to read what his teacher put. And then the teacher went 1 week without actually responding, and so the little boy emailed him and said, it was Miss Ramsey. Miss Ramsey, I really miss you giving me. And so she was like, I'm so sorry. It was one of those weeks that report cards were coming out. And so anyway, she immediately, you know, that is so important to the students.
Cool.
The next slide really goes right alongside what we just talked about. And do our teachers think that they have enough time in the workday to complete grading? And 60% say no.
Are all the students lockstep? Are they the same assignment at the same time?
No.
And I think that's the extra challenge, because I'm thinking about how I used to grade papers, and you might have your answer key or you have your idea of what you want, even if it's I was an English teacher. And so if it's a short response, you kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. But if you're bouncing from assignment to assignment and no one's in the same spot, boy, that would take a long time.
And elementary grade level to grade level?
Oh,
Because
that's a
some of
lot.
them have K through
Yeah.
5 students.
That is a lot. It's a lot.
So the way it's set up, like if we have a high school student that's taken virtual, they have one roster teacher that's in charge of their English, their math, whatever their schedule is, or whatever is that virtual model.
Right.
That one teacher, whoever it is in charge of different subject matters.
Right.
What we've done, we started out like that, and it became, it was tough to do. So what we ended up doing at the high school is there is a roster person for, like, I have their seniors, and the roster teachers for 12th graders. And so they work with them, they make sure they're working, they're logging on. But then we decided each section, this teacher is doing all the math grading, and they're doing the rosters. There's one person who's taking care of the ELA. So they are sharing the grading like that, out of step, like you described. But
Right.
we did find
But it's
that
by content area,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I'm only responsible for
Yeah.
grading English. I don't have to grade, don't make me grade math.
If you get into it's not just science, it gets into, or math, it's pre-calc, or calculus,
Right.
calculus AB, or, all that good stuff. So they did look at that so that there's more content specific doing the grading, but the roster teacher is still the one person that they go to. Are you doing, what's
Right.
struggling?
Yeah.
Or you need tutoring, and then they make the connection to somebody that they can meet with for tutoring, or they say, here's where you sign up for the AP tutoring that you wanna come in, or the labs that we provide for you at night, that kind of stuff.
So do you have within your systems, traditional classroom, is it Canvas that you use for your grade book and all that? Is that what's called?
Yeah, Canvas is where their learning platform is, eSchool is where we're doing our grading. So yeah.
Okay, so do you have in there a way to show the amount of activities that each teacher does and then compared to the amount of activities that they do here to get a true comparison of, well, we're doing this many activities in class and they're doing this many activities in virtual?
It's not probably a true comparison, because think of how many things a teacher does that's participation or interaction or discussion. We have this going on that they don't take technically a grade for, so they're not listing all that in their grade book, but they do have assignments that they're doing. So there's a lot of interaction and that critical thinking, interaction and participating that's taking place during a regular in-person learning that we're not really saying, okay, that, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
I was
it's not
thinking
like
about
five
that,
things,
because it's,
five things.
you know,
So-
a really good teacher, there's an art and a science to it, but that artistry is being able to progress monitor as the class is
Correct.
participating, and it's hard to do that in a virtual platform. You can't have that, you know, I'm monitoring to see if Miss Roulette is actually grasping calculus.
So
No, I'm not.
I'm just thinking about your numbers, that you're talking about 50 and you're in person at 150. If they're saying, well, we're actually doing 200 and we're doing 150, I mean, because I know like in our business, I can tell this person over here does 100 activities a day. This person does 70 a day. And I
Right.
can see who's having the most workload. Have those are used to compare somehow. I would think if, because what would be the hurdles you would have, or I hate complaints, it would be people like, well, we have this many 150 and we have only 50 roster kids here,
Mm-hmm.
but you have some data to show, well, they're really doing this many and you're doing this many. So you have, I don't know if you have a system that shows
We could,
that.
and I think too, like having the teachers embedded at the sites, a lot of their neighboring teachers realize that they do a lot more work than they thought. They realize, oh my gosh, all of the grading. We still have to progress monitor to know where those students are. They see kids coming in that they're meeting in small groups. So, but I do think we could definitely put together something.
I mean, it's something
Yeah.
used as measurable, so when
Yeah.
you have those conversations, you can justify, this is why we have 50 and this is why
Yeah.
that in-person may have 150.
Right.
I don't know,
I
I mean.
still feel comfortable. I know they said 50 and some said 75 to 100, 125. I feel like secondary 75 has been a good.
Yeah.
When we got down to
That's what I
that,
was gonna say.
we feel comfortable.
I think before we make any major decisions,
Yeah.
we will have a more detailed survey with like what grade levels they're teaching, what because I think this was more for us for right now, but as we project towards the future, I think these surveys will be a lot more specific to like what grade level do you
Yeah.
teach and what content,
Yeah.
because I agree with Sharon, I think some of them, and as she mentioned, or Jennifer mentioned, some of these teachers didn't select to be virtual teachers, and so hopefully by next year, we'll actually be there and everyone will want to be the virtual teacher, because I think some that make this too hard, they got into it not really wanting to be a virtual teacher. It's a definite personality type. And so some of the people who might be complaining, even if brick and mortar teachers, they really wouldn't want to be a virtual teacher either. So I think we've got a lot more data to pull out first.
And hopefully, once we get on the other side of COVID, then we can do some of those activities where we do have some small group instruction, where
Yes.
we can do a lot of progress monitoring without there being that abundance of grading. But right now, it's just not possible to do that.
I think that's a good point of us defending.
Yeah, I think the data, we need the more data we have.
I just say for y'all to have a mutiny of, well, you've said 50 is the number and you're gonna have a whole group of people showing up and going, what about us?
I should
You
have
know,
said
I
50
mean,
is the utopia.
There we go.
There, it's the utopia. But here's the positive. On question 10, that last slide. So we asked, would you want to continue this position in the future? 75% of them, 25 out of 35 said yes. There were 2 that didn't answer, and I don't understand why they wouldn't be yes or no. So,
I have to
Yeah.
say, I've been in, I think, 25 or 26 of the sites so far this year.
Well,
And
I'm-
I make a point to visit the virtual teacher
Mm-hmm.
in every single site. At the beginning, this was no.
No, yes.
And it's getting better every single week. When I visit schools and talk to those teachers, it's getting better and better, and they're having better and better feedback and feeling more supported. And it's scary to start something new, and especially teachers, because we like to have the right answers. And so
Yes.
they've been rock stars to learn with us through this.
Well, and I'm
Yes.
glad to hear, you talk about that as well too, about next year, you know, if somebody is not loving doing this, great. I mean, let's make the change and, you know, do that, because we definitely don't want to, you know, force them into doing that. But I get where we're at today, so I'm glad to hear that we're at least looking at that as well too, because.
And I want to go back to that, the supported question, the teachers feeling supported, the six that said not really. Do we ask them a further question or follow-up question, like what do you need to feel more supported?
That would be good. We will. Because that will help us, especially with our planning.
Oh, for sure.
We thought maybe how do you feel supported, you know, when they were answering that.
Yeah.
Both ways, yeah.
Yeah, you do. So to wrap it up, after our last board meeting and after all of the data that we have received, these are our next steps. So as Ms. James had mentioned, communication, communication, communication. So we will continue with that with Mr. Starr's weekly newsletter that does go out via email. We'll continue with the parent summits, the FAQs. So we want to over-communicate. Next, accountability measures to ensure those expectations are being met. I know Ms. James had mentioned the teacher log. That's their communication log. That's really important because parents, we need to know that parents are being communicated with, and whatever their need is, it's being followed up on. So they actually complete a log. Mr. Fry, or Ms. Fry and Mr. Starr are checking in on that log once a week, and then Ms. James and I jump in there as well to make sure that there is that continued communication from pre-K all the way to 12. A follow-up meeting with Adjournment after our last meeting. Sharon and I actually met with Adjournment and basically laid down the law and said these are the things that we have to have working and fixed moving forward. And so I think we felt pretty good after that meeting. We have a follow-up meeting next week, and we will continue to follow up until, and we basically, I'll just be transparent, after that meeting was completely done, we asked our rep to stay on the line, and we basically said, if this does not get fixed, we were like, we're not going down with this ship, so you got to get it fixed. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that we could have been any clearer than what we were that day. So I know Miss Fry and Mr. Starr have been meeting with them periodically, just as little things come up that parents bring to them. But like I said, Sharon and I will continue to have those follow-up meetings until we get all of the glitches fixed. We will continue to review data of student progress. Mr. Starr is putting out that very specific pacing guide for students so that they know where they need to be at the end of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, so that they know that they are on track to have the course completed. And at the elementary and the secondary level, we're still going to use our benchmark assessments so that we want to know that they are meeting benchmarks. Mm-hmm. So that will still be getting done. And then we will be sending out a secondary survey to parents and teachers in the March timeframe, unless we're told otherwise that it should be done sooner. And then when those come out, of course, we will be presenting those results to you all.
I have a quick question about Adjournment, and when all this happened and the state said, here's what platforms are available, how many platforms were available? Do you remember?
When we did our evaluation, there were three.
Okay.
APEX, Edgenuity, and Adjournment.
Okay.
Under Adjournment, that's the company. So underneath that, there's courseware, there's Calvert Learning. Courseware is only 6 through 12. Calvert Learning is your pre-K through up to 8th grade, up to 8th grade. And then one of the things that the state, they ended up buying for us for Edjournment. They did for us, because of the ratio that they did for CARES Act, we got 100 of the licenses paid from the state.
Mm-hmm.
They paid more in other districts just because of how they allotted the funding. They did that, and then they also purchased courseware from Edjournment with that. So courseware is for 6th through 12th grade. We're using it right now because it's extremely modifiable. We use it for special ed and our EL students. And any kiddos now second semester, they're a bubble, we'll start looking at moving it to courseware to work as opposed to Edgenuity. Edgenuity is extremely dry. They just added their 3rd through 5th grade. When we interviewed them, they hadn't started it, there was no outline. Mm-hmm. So there were 3 programs. APEX is what we used at Union, I think, Dr. Vincent.
When we very first started, yes. I mean, this was, I'm afraid to even tell you how many years ago, but it was probably 14 years ago. Exactly. And it was awful. I'm just going to tell you. Florida Virtual came after that, and it was very, very, very expensive and did not align to Oklahoma standards.
Now, once we go back and start reviewing, Pearson offers something now as well, but I just started hearing inklings of it And so I'm not quite sure.
And that's what I've been hearing from the state level, is that a lot of these companies are just now starting to try to meet the Oklahoma standards. And I mentioned this last board meeting, is that's the danger you have when you create your own standards as a state and don't, at least go with a group of states, is
That was
it's-
definitely a highlight of the meeting, that it was kind of an aha moment, that, it didn't even, because, I asked the question, God, why did we spend this money on,
Yeah.
when it did, and yet it never even occurred to me the core versus Oklahoma
Yeah. Yeah.
standards.
And it was supposed to be Oklahoma, when we,
Yeah.
it was really our only choice out of the four.
Right,
It was
but-
the only one.
They said they were gonna align it with Oklahoma, which they're working on now, they just didn't get it done because of COVID was their excuse, but
Mhm.
one, just kind of thought, I just totally lost it, I'm so sorry, it was a good one too, but.
We believe it.
Well, I wanted to say, I appreciate you all over communicating. It does seem that information is getting out. I know that within some of the social media activity and things that, get brought to my attention or seeing, I'm seeing some parents answer questions of people that are posting out there. So I think it's an effect of you guys also getting that information out there as well too. And so,
Well,
again,
we take responsibility for it, Mr.
Hey,
Duggan, because,
I am telling you,
we, this is our job, and when
Yeah.
you offer a virtual platform, we need to offer a good product, and I just hope that the board sees and that our parents see that we are working as hard as we can, and we do want to be great, and we want to provide a service, and they are our customers.
And they did a lot of good stuff. We had some awesome things going on.
Yeah,
The
we
problem
did.
is, we weren't setting the story. The people that were having a negative experience were getting our story out.
Right.
So we really had to stop and say, we gotta start sharing our story better. We have to get out and advertise these positive things. We have to make sure they understand a lot of the positive interactions that we have going on with kids and the products that they're putting out there. There's some kids knocking it out of the park. It's just, we have to do better. And I think that's what we took from you guys in our last feedback, is be sure that we're sharing the positives that we're having, so people are hearing that as well, not the negative voices coming out.
I do have a question. Who does Epic use for their platform?
They actually, parents can choose what they want. Actually, one of our teachers now was a former Epic teacher, so I went to her and was like, hey, what supplemental programs did Epic use? So a parent goes in and they say, well, I want to use this, I want to use this, I want to use this, and they have a whole menu of what they can choose from.
Do we have the ability to have that same offering?
We do with some, not for a baseline platform, not like with an Edmonton, but we might for some of the resources, because some of the resources that they provide are free. However, this one thing that we heard from parents was, please, I do not want to have to log into multiple platforms. I do not. So we might be able to offer some of the free versions, which some of them are pretty robust. That they would have the option, like for instance, for first grade, there's one that we talked about that would be free that they could use for phonics if they wanted to do some work in it. So,
I would add on that too, Joe, if you don't mind, is that they're advertising supplemental curriculum as their holistic
yes,
curriculum. They are not. They're saying, okay, mouse,
ABC mouse.
It only does certain things, but some parents are selecting that and think that they're covering all of their standards and they're gonna be on, and they're not. So there's not, I feel like we can offer all the supplementals, but the thing that Howard Learning under Edmonton provided for us was it was a whole piece. It was all the curriculum and it was everything you're supposed, having. All the kids.
A lot of the fears we get from parents is if they transition back to the brick and mortar, will their child be prepared? Will they have met all the standards? And we feel like right now we can say, if you progress, you stay with program of fidelity, you will. I mean, there's gonna be gaps, but there's gaps with anything, that we have a fear that if a parent didn't know what they were selecting, they would have a lot of that.
Could you say the same thing if we receive a student from Epic, that they have no gaps?
Say that again, Dr. Vincent.
Could you say the same thing if we received a student from Epic, that they had no gaps and they'd met all the standards?
So one thing I heard about Epic was the teacher availability or visiting with the teacher was truly not what is some of the notions that are out there. I'm not making claim to Epic, so Epic don't sue me. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just saying some of the things that I've heard. So my thing is, why create the will? Obviously, if there's something they're not doing that maybe we know of and we can do those things and provide those things and then utilize what they're doing. Because I would think that they're meeting standards, whatever they're using is meeting Oklahoma standards. Is that yay or nay?
Well, they can use Adjournment just like us, they can use, and there is not one virtual platform that's a core, like Ms. James was talking about, that's aligned to Oklahoma.
So can we as a district build a platform and our board invest in it that will meet Oklahoma standards?
Well, I will say, even at the elementary level, we have gone through with Adjournment and identified all of the standards that are being covered and the ones that are missed. And we've already, with the Exact Path program, that's going to fill in all the holes. So we can. And then I know we had mentioned at the last meeting, at the elementary level, we are building modules into Canvas around our own curriculum that we could, so let's just say there's pieces of curriculum that are missing, use the modules that we have created, and that will, so yes, eventually we will, and I just have to say this too, in a non-COVID year, they won't be able to compete, because what we're gonna have to offer is you're still a Tiger, and you're here, and you're still tied to your school, and you will be able to take part of all
Participate in book
those.
club and be in the running club and
But we'll still
run
have that
track
academic
and-
piece though too, that
Yes.
can be met and
Yes.
meet the standard where they're getting a good quality virtual education.
Yes.
That's competitive and will prepare them
Yep.
to where they go to college, whatever it may be.
Well, and I think too, like when Miss James was talking about the small group tutoring, that will become more, we're going to see that more and more and more as teachers finally learn that virtual role. And then as they get more and more comfortable coming into our buildings, I think that's where, if there are any gaps, that's where they're going to be filled, because we'll use the benchmark that we give them at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year, and that beginning and middle. And they're also, our teachers are doing the Lit Now assessments, so they're going to know all their specific holes. So I feel very strongly that we will be able to meet all their academic needs.
And another piece at the secondary level where they can't compete is I ask anyone to compare graduation rates. Just compare graduation rates.
Well,
Yeah,
We
especially.
have kids that come to us from Epic and they tell us as our dropout because they were the last week of session and they had no credits.
No credits at all.
Well, I would challenge you all to come up with a list of items that make us a better option virtually, and Adam and whomever else, we promote that. You know, obviously we were having our issues and we're gonna get through them now. And I know they'll probably be even better in the second semester, but you know, when we get one full school year of this and we have that thing ready to kick off in the fall of 2021, you know, we've got our list coming out of spring, and this is what makes us better, and we're going to be and we'll continue to get better. I know me as a board member, I'm willing to invest in that. It's important to me. I think that's not going away. Epic's not going away. We got to create something better, and it's the way of the future. People like the easiness of it for some. You know, the distance learning's tough because people are forced into that, but they got options to do this. So if we do it right, we can have the best. I'm willing to invest as a board member to support that financially. That's manpower, technology, whatever it may be, to do that. You know, the funding, I think it will help solve some funding issues they're funded at the same level Epic is. We can solve some funding issues that we don't have with the overhead of brick and mortar. So I think there's a lot of wins there for us. But number one, they're going to get a good or better virtual education than they would anywhere else, plus what we have to offer from a district. But I'll challenge you all to come up with a list of those things, and let's get this. And
That's what I was gonna say. I think before we can commit to creating our own platform, because right now we're using, resources, we would really have to say we need time and probably positions, just because it's very intricate. I mean, like Jennifer's describing, we are using other people's, platforms, we're using other people's resources, and so right now they go to our Clever, like their elementary, and they click on that and they get like Learning A to Z, or they get Imagine Learning. So, I mean, we know that it's
I would like that question to the board, because I know me personally, I know you all are responsible in other areas as well within the district and have other duties outside of just virtual. You talked about people. I think I would ask that you all come back and tell us the amount of people. We figure out what the cost is, and if the board has that discussion of, we want to invest in those people that's what they focus on, and do that and get us ready for that. I think that's a good position for us to be in, to decide if we want to support it or not. I'll open that up to the board to see
I
if
completely agree. I mean, I think in order to do it right, and that's where, kind of back when I had, ingesting a little bit of just saying, well, God, we're creating new jobs, or maybe we need to, create some positions or things. I mean, wholeheartedly, I agree. This is not going away. It's going to be the new way that we progress into the future. And I think, as we mature this, we are going to get back to that 25 percentile plus of students that are going to be taking advantage of this. And I truly believe it'll get to that level, if not, even higher at some point in time. And then if it becomes a point of where we do have the best program, again, I think the advertisement and the attraction that we can get, not just statewide, but there can be some nationally recognition that brings new students to us.
So right now, the state has lifted restrictions on public schools to be able to accept virtual students from anywhere. We don't know what's going to happen after this year. They've lifted it for
Good
this
point.
year. We're hoping that it stays in place, but we don't know yet what's going to happen at the
But
state
yeah,
levels.
that's
But
a good point.
that
That
is
is a
work,
good
though,
point.
that we need our community and our board to work on, is saying this is something we need to stay in place.
If we were able to capture 5% of the 30,000+ kids, just say 5%, and the funding how they fund that with virtual versus overhead, that will solve. It will not solve, but I'm sure it would help us financially.
It goes a
madly.
long ways
It would
towards-
help, when you don't have the brick and mortar overhead versus the virtual. That's why Epic makes so much money. And I think we ask them to bring us back what they need and spend Natalie's money. And so what do you, Brandy? Anyone? Bring us a list for January. I think it's important we get it ASAP and maybe talk about it, and at the January board, bring it up for discussion, and at the January board meeting, we could talk about in subcommittees in January, in the January board meeting, what that may look like, what your needs are, and decide if we want to pass or approve it or not approve it at the January board meeting.
Well, or we can even take a phased-in approach. It's not I got to buy it all right now.
No, but yeah. And I think in the personal manpower that they need to focus solely on virtual, with not
Agreed.
doing what you do with your area of your job and your job. I think,
No.
and then obviously report to you, or however you set that up. But that, just having those people to do that versus you all have to do that plus this. So, my thoughts.
No, I
Thank
want
you.
to add to that, because, yes, I think the responsibilities and the span of control are just maxed out already. And then so, to build what we need to do, it needs to be a separate section or sector entity of sorts, so where it's not involving you, taking away from what we're doing every day. And so we're spread thin as much as it is now. So that's what I would like to see, is the focus of what it would take to encompass to, come to fruition by itself and not involving with you guys. We needed to hire an associate superintendent over that and build a whole different branch of the whole school system. And that way they can constantly focus on that, because, we got 15,000 other students that we have to focus on, and that we're struggling with what's
And
going
we're
on.
asking these three ladies to build a high school. It's 2,000 to 3,000 kids or whatever it may be. And that's a high school. Well, you all have other duties.
It's a school district in Oklahoma.
Yeah, so I think
It's bigger
to
than
get
school
the
district.
whatever the human capital or resources you need, you tell us what that is, and we make a decision
Right.
if we want to invest in that or not invest in that, and allow you all to get that ready to go.
Well, and I do appreciate you saying January, because we will be able to have a better look, and Natalie's looking at me, but a better look at, finances at that point, because we'll know where we are with ad valorem and all of those things and see where we want to invest. And you mentioned phasing in, so it may be phasing in, or it may be, hey, we're sitting pretty and we can dump a lot of money into this, or what are we going to give up in order to put this in place?
Because I don't think we can, I don't, there's no, we can't afford to keep patching it and try to making these micro improvements until we get the end product. We've got to get it in product, ready to roll. Here's what it is. I think we got to get to that point instead of.
Well, it sounds like you guys are going to figure out the curriculum in the best direction that we need to go. But we need some professionals that can handle the virtual part of it and aspect of it and have that desire to do that and let you go back to
Procedures,
taking care of the
processes,
rest of the school.
all those, yeah.
And I appreciate the work of these ladies, because if we built this ship in 3 months, and it's not there yet, but boy, has it come a long way. And I know there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into it. So I really appreciate you all.
Thank you. Next item will be the consent item 12 through 37.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Hang on just a minute, let me get to the page again, so you can vote. Where the heck did it go?
Oh, we got to wait on the voting buttons.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It went away. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Why don't we proceed? You just do a
Sure, I
manual
can
vote
just
that
do a
way, and we'll just
manual.
proceed.
Yeah.
Did you advance to the next item? Because I'm still on the,
Yeah,
Yes, I did.
I'm not.
And then
I'm not either.
and then it just disappeared.
Is it locked up or
So,
something, or?
Yeah.
we're trying to sync.
Well, we'll just do this old school, and we'll go off the paper
Okay.
agenda here.
I'm sorry.
And you just record the votes.
All right.
Okay, next item, Ms. Ena, number 38.
Good evening. In August, the substitute rate of non-certified and certified subs were temporarily increased until December 31st, 2020. Because the pandemic is still ongoing, we feel it is necessary to extend the temporary increase until the end of the school year, and we ask for your approval to put that into effect at this time.
Okay, any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, next item, Ms. Bergwall.
Good evening, Dr. Vinson, President Allen, members of the board. I have the GMP tonight for Oliver Middle School. We were a little bit higher than we'd like to see on our bids, but we are asking for your approval tonight, except for the rejection. We are asking you to reject the plumbing package. The plumbing package was almost 4 times as higher than our estimate, and we only received 1 bid. So we would like to reject the plumbing bid, and we will rebid that in the coming month. But we will go ahead and encumber that full GMP. We would like to, and what that will do is we'll have to work at rebidding the plumbing package, getting some money out of it, and going to our contractors and saying, okay, do you have some value engineering items for us? Like we did at Rosewood, we changed the lighting package, or we changed something about the site, and we made some slight changes. We have the money within the trust to encumber all the funds. What it would do, it would short us on furniture. So we'd like to go ahead and encumber all that at this time, and then work at getting that plumbing rebid and other items out of the project.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm almost got it. Sorry.
Next item, number 40, Mr. Zdamski. Looking dapper this evening.
I look the part. Good evening, Dr. Vinson, President Allen, members of the school board. It's my pleasure to be in front of you this evening to present options for the official name for the STEM Innovation Academy. My brief presentation will have 3 parts. The first part, I'm just going to talk you through the process we used with our committee to generate the final names. The second part, I'm going to have a guest presenter come up, one of our students, to present you with those names. And then the third part is just a brief Q&A for answer any questions you have. So I was given the responsibility to chair the naming committee, and really my main goal was to stick to School Board Policy 2120, which outlines the process to use to name a facility. And really, it's to come up with some names and present them to you guys. So we gathered 19 stakeholders. Those 19 stakeholders, we had 7 staff from Broken Arrow schools. We had 6 students, 2 from the 8th grade, Sequoia, and I think it was Oneida. We had 2 from BAFA and 2 from the high school, and then we had 6 community members for 19 total. We had 2 meetings. So our first meeting, we did a brief presentation about the STEM Innovation Academy, the building, the facility, and some programming. Then we generated names. We came up with a little under 50 names. We had homework walking away from that first meeting. The homework was, hey, go talk with a minimum of 10 people, students, staff, community members, about these new options. And the second meeting we came back, we invested some time talking about the feedback we received from our 10 or so. A lot of us did more than 10, up to 20 people. We had a discussion about that. Then we trimmed our list down. We actually added a couple more names in there. I think we had 65 total. And then we trimmed it down to 5 and had some discussion, did some vote, and came up with 3. And at this time, I want to invite Jake Lane. He's an 8th grader from Sequoia Middle School. He was served on our committee, invested time in Broken Arrow schools, and I'm going to invite him up to share those final 3 names with you real fast. So please welcome Jake.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Vinson. My name is Jake Lane, and I'm the 8th grade student at Sequoia Middle School. On behalf of the naming committee, it's my pleasure to recommend 3 name options for the STEM facility. The 3 recommended names are Vanguard Academy of Broken Arrow Innovation Academy, and Broken Arrow Envision Academy. Vanguard Academy of Broken Arrow was the top choice of the naming committee. Vanguard is defined as a group of people leading the way in new developments or ideas. This name was popular in our committee because we felt the definition of Vanguard connected deeply to the purpose of the facility. Broken Arrow Innovation Academy was the second choice of the naming committee. This choice was popular in our committee because it was a straightforward name that clearly communicates the purpose of the facility. Broken Arrow Envision Academy was the third choice of the naming committee. Envision is defined as imagining a future possibility which connects to the purpose of the facility. And the word envision possesses energy, which was another aspect of envision that was attractive to the committee members. Can Mr. J or I answer any questions you might have?
So you said Vanguard?
Yes.
Is number 1?
Yes.
And tell us again the importance of the word Vanguard.
So it's like a project. The facility is for projects, and pretty much, and it is a group of people leading the way in new developments or ideas.
Okay. So you had number 1 was Vanguard, number 2 was BA Innovation Academy, and number 3 was BA Envision Academy, correct?
Yes.
You are very well spoken, by the way.
I'm telling
Must be good parents.
So you said it was Broken Arrow Vanguard?
Yes.
Okay. Which one did you like the best?
Mine and Mrs. James was Vanguard Academy. We came up with that one concept, I guess.
I'm in favor of Vanguard Academy if he is, as well as he speaks. Questions, discussion?
No, I think, I commend y'all on the process. I mean, wow, whittling down 65 names, that had to be a tough game. But that's impressive, so thank you all for the process and letting it work. So.
Jake, are you going to be part of the academy?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
well, how can we not deny? How can we deny somebody that's going to participate
Thank
as
you.
well as help with naming? So I'm good with.
you need to make
Is
a
it
recommendation, Mr. Denton.
All right, make a motion to accept the number 1 choice. Is it Vanguard of Broken Arrow or Broken Arrow Vanguard Academy?
Yes.
Vanguard Academy of Broken Arrow.
Yes. Vanguard Academy of Broken Arrow.
Okay, accept Vanguard Academy of Broken Arrow as the new naming.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Ms. Roulette.
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, Jake, thank you.
Yeah,
Nicely
thank
done.
you.
You're very welcome.
Well done. Thank you, Mr. Jadamski. Next item, Ms. James.
I'm actually stepping in, sorry.
All right, Ms.
She
Dias.
teaches a class at night, and her students are waiting on her online.
Okay.
And I just have to interject, I was on that committee, and Jake was awesome, as well, all the students were just amazing on the committee. It was fun, and Mr. Jadamski did an awesome job, because it's not easy to get collaboration on a Zoom meeting, and he did a great job.
Well, you probably need to get him involved in more committees as well as he did up here tonight.
Oh, Jake? Oh, he's
Jake.
on my list. Yeah,
you
he's
need to
number
get him
one.
involved.
I think he's gonna follow in his parents' footsteps and be really involved, so it's awesome.
Good.
So tonight, I bring to you a discussion, motion, and vote on to approve the purchase from McGraw-Hill to provide the socialist curriculum. It's a cost of $184,608 with bond funds. And just as a reminder, in the summertime, we get our textbook allocation, which is how we usually buy our social studies or whatever year the adoption is. We used the textbook allocations to purchase Adjournment, since that was an unexpected cost this year. And so then throughout the school year, we prioritized who needed their textbooks first. So we looked at, U.S. history, and then we looked at 5th grade. And then when we discovered the gaps in instruction with Adjournment, we bought the 4th and 3rd grade. And so working with Ms. Enif, she's helped us identify these bond funds that we had in instructional bond, because we really wanted to get these purchased for our 8th grade students and teachers. And so that's why this is coming later than usual.
Ms. Dias, what's the number of years between adoptions?
Typically 6 years, and I think it might have even been longer, because we've had so many budget shortfalls in Oklahoma that we just hate to even risk it, because now we're already looking at science adoption, so it's not like we have a year to catch up. So we already are looking at science if we get money for next year, so we really want to try to get all these purchased. So what we've done is prioritize the years, and then once we look at our budgets again, if we have enough funds this year, we'll probably be coming back for 7th grade and 6th grade.
Okay.
Questions, discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Ms. Roulette. Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dias. Ms. Enif.
Good evening again.
We already spent your money, so.
You just heard our audit report for the 1920 school year, and we're almost halfway through the 2020-2021 school year. January is a very important month for us in the finance budget world. We get a lot of key pieces of information to our budgeting process. And just as a reminder to the board, when the board approved the operating budget back in October, they budgeted a very conservative budget. We approved actually just about the same budget that was approved in our 1920 school year, despite a lot of uncertainties going forward with the pandemic, what our needs were going to be to safely open and operate school for our students and staff, and a lot of uncertainty around the curriculum that we'd be offering in the virtual academy. So because of this conservative budget and the report that you just heard from our auditor, I feel like we are in a better position than most going into a very uncertain 21-22 school year, because unfortunately the picture that is presenting to us at the moment for our midterm allocation is bleak. The conservative estimate is a cut of $50 to $60 per student, and the more aggressive approach is upwards of $70. So anywhere from a $2 to potentially a $5 to $6 million cut is what we're looking going forward into the 21-22 school year. This, coupled with some uncertainties with our ad valorem situation in some of our counties that we have significant commercial property, will probably make for some difficult decisions going forward. But as always, I feel very confident that our board will support us in the areas that we need most to move forward as an excellent school district here in Broken Arrow. And so as the information unfolds, especially with our midterm allocation and ad valorem, we will be sharing that information as soon as we get it. Typically, the midterm adjustment is released before we leave for the holiday break, but with the pandemic just about delaying everything, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't receive it until January. But you can see already the effect that our initial state aid allocation cut had at the very beginning of the year. A lot of the, we don't usually put a lot of weight into that initial allocation release because it is based on prior year enrollment numbers and demographics and all of that. And so that's why that midterm allocation is so important, because it is based on our actual October 1st certified data from our accreditation. State sources and federal sources continue to remain strong. The claims process for our federal ESSA and incentive grant funds that the district receive has started to come in. We have received very pointed advice from the State Department to get those funds expended and spent as soon as possible, and so we're definitely following that advice because, again, the message from public schools across the state and the country need to be for another round of stimulus funds for public education now rather than later. A lot of school districts in this state are in jeopardy of actually going into a negative fund balance to close out this school year, and so we need relief more than ever to continue to cover the expenses of ongoing school operations.
So, Ms. Enif, how does that work if we do receive additional federal funds? Because I think that will help, especially our patrons, with the language of how to talk about this and our need for it. How will that help us to have this pot of money when we know that there's only certain ways we can spend money?
We need flexibility on those funds from the federal government. We need some flexibility on meeting maintenance of efforts and some of the other federally mandated standards that school districts are held to. Accountability is always something that, as evidenced by our CAFR, that we adhere to very strictly, but we also need flexibility in spending those dollars that fit Broken Arrow, because Broken Arrow is not the same as Jenks or Union or Tulsa Public. And so we need flexibility to be able to spend those dollars at the board's direction on the initiatives that need to carry forward and keep our school district what makes Broken Arrow great.
Thank you.
Building fund, again, ad valorem is the driving source of this revenue, and the difference in our local sources from a year ago last year was some of the insurance premium payout from the wind storm that happened last May. Child nutrition, this graph in particular really paints the picture of the devastating toll that our child nutrition department has suffered with the pandemic. They have done an outstanding job of making sure meal service is continued as a continued service despite minor disruptions of having to quarantine or close a school for a couple days. But you can see our local sources of child nutrition revenue are down significantly. They also ended the 1920 year down significantly because of having to abruptly close operations in March. So we're at this point really relying heavily on our federal claims and for those to continue to come in strong. Expenditures, again, we started out the school year with a very conservative budget, and so our expenditures have remained relatively consistent. The step raise was implemented, as well as a small $200 increase in our teacher compensation schedule, which I believe we were one of the only few districts, if any, to go above and beyond the mandated step raise. And the difference in the consumable expenses is the money that was invested in the PPE. And so at this point, the prediction of our fund balance is widely, it could be anywhere on the spectrum at this point. And so we have half a year to go in our spending. We typically cease normal operating expenditures in April, but again, two key pieces of budgetary information are forthcoming. It's really interesting how school district budgets work as far as information often lagging the decision-making process and us having to adapt to that information that we were given. Most for-profit corporations don't operate that way, and it can be a little unnerving at times, having to sometimes knee-jerk reaction decisions, which is why we always try and keep a healthy fund balance so we're not in that situation.
And just to clarify, that's because we set our budget at the beginning of the year, so we've set what we're gonna spend money on, and then to get a midterm cut, that means we have to pull money from somewhere to make that adjustment so that we can fill those holes because we've already spent that money.
Right. Contracts have already gone out, and contractually we have agreed to employ X number of employees and teachers and administrators and staff and all that. Right. That's correct.
All right. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nellie. Okay, next item, new business. We have none. The next item will be moved to executive session.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Hey, do we want to start in like 5 or 10 minutes to give us a little bit of time to
5 minutes, yeah.
5 minutes restroom, whatever we need to do, and then come back? I still don't have a voting button.